It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. This is a special episode that we're doing today. I'm sitting down with Beatrice and Kim Seay from BIke.POC and BikeNWA. I met these two ladies when I went out on a BIPOC event in August downtown Fayetteville. We had an amazing time, got to ride around the center of the city, ride through the historic district, and did about a 3.5-mile loop. We took an amazing photo with a lot of people from all walks of life, from all races, in front of that beautiful mural that's right there at the corner of Dixon and College. And I was just blown away by what these guys were able to pull together in a short period of time. And I wanted to share my platform with them to talk about the next event that they're doing. They're doing a BIPOC ride in downtown Rogers on Sunday, the 11th of October. So if you're hearing this after that, I'll be sure to put some information in the show notes so you know how to get in contact with these ladies, how you can find out more about what BikeNWA is doing, about any future BIPOC rides. But without further ado, I want to welcome Beatrice and Kim Seay to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Thanks for having us, Randy.
Good morning. Doing well. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, even after some technical difficulties, we finally got it together. So let's see if we can make this go. I would love for either Kim or Beatrice to talk about this whole BIPOC. How did it come about? And are you now we're in Rogers. You've already done one in Fayetteville at the end of August. How did this start?
Yeah, well, B and I love riding, and I've been riding for a really long time before I moved here to Bentonville over 25 years ago. When I came here, there wasn't a mountain bike scene. And then finally, when there was about 12 years ago or so, I found myself being the only few of women, of hardly any, and then being the only person of color that I saw on the trails. And so I love mountain biking, and fast forward to now, I just really haven't seen many people of color represented on our trails, and our trails are growing tremendously in Northwest Arkansas through the help of the Walton Family Foundation and other advocacy groups like BikeNWA. And so it just felt like a really good time to introduce this, or not introduce it, but to get people of color out on bikes. And how best way to do that than to invite people on a ride. And it just also happened to be a very healthy way of getting out from social isolation with COVID, and one of the less riskier ways to get out and be in the public with people, wearing your mask and staying that 6 to 10 feet apart.
Yeah. Beatrice, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think just being able to, I think there was, like Kim and I have been involved in the bike scene up here for a while. And I think at some point we were like looking at each other and being like, well, we can continue to lobby for, our organizations from within, or we can like do that and create something new. And I guess we looked at each other and we were like, if we're not going to do it, then who is? So we better.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of those.
Yeah, John Lewis's phrase: if if not me, who, if not now, when, just rang out so true for us. Even, before we started that, but just gave us even more momentum to go for it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're
And
right.
we
You're
were
absolutely
really,
right. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
we were really fortunate to be able to partner with BikeNWA, who also sees a strive to getting for DEI and getting the whole bike scene more inclusive to people, to everybody in our community. So they were really champions of us in helping us get this rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, for the uninitiated, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is kind of like the major buzzword now in corporate America. It's in life in general. I mean, people are talking about this, and I think you guys have kind of tapped into a nerve that needs to be explored. And needs to be represented. I know. I remember as I looked around at the group, what were the final numbers of the first BIPOC ride? Do you know?
I think it was about 80 to 100 people. That was our range. We knew it was at least 80.
All I can remember is that at one of the crosswalks, I stood there and me and another biker just so that people could cross over. And we were like, it would seem like we were there. We kept looking at each other like, should we let these cars go? And then we still, another wave of bikers. And the line just got longer and longer behind us. But that was, it was just fun to see all those people out there. And as I had said earlier, there were people from all walks of life. You had kids, you had adults, you had older people. It was just a really nice collection of folks that I had never seen before. But as I said, I was telling Kim earlier that I ride the trails a lot, and I never run into anyone of color on the trails. And certainly I think what you guys are doing is important, because it does show that, the trails are for everyone, and that there is this is a biking culture in Northwest Arkansas, and everybody should take part of it. So,
yeah, it was great to see the number of people to come out and the variety of people coming out, and just, the whole idea really was just to bring awareness and to have that energy of all of us coming together for something. So that first one was in Fayetteville, and we decided that, Northwest Arkansas doesn't comprise just of one town. And so BNI, we got so much feedback afterwards to please have another ride, or when was the next ride going to be.
Yeah.
And so we kind of made that decision, like, okay, it was great for the people in Fayetteville and those that could commute to the ride. So now let's put it in another city where people can also commute to the ride, so that we grow the awareness, not just in one town per se, but trying to make it most accessible to another community that may not have bike racks on their cars to be able to get there. So we decided on Rogers for the upcoming October 11th ride.
Yeah, that's, and I think that's great. I've already mapped out my ride. It's going to be about a 15-mile ride up crossover or 265 for me to get up there, but I'm going to do that. So it'll be a long ride for me, but it'll be fun nonetheless. So I'm used to some long rides, so that'll be a lot of fun. Just got to watch out and all the speeding cars on the road. And that's the other thing too. I think people don't realize, I hear people talk a lot about riding bikes here, but they're like, well, you know, people aren't usually comfortable around bikes on the road. And I said, well, yeah, you don't have to ride on the road. We have so many trails available. We just finished up an extension of the Greenway. I'm pointing like you can see it, but it's right over here on the east side of town by Crossover and Old Wire, and it connects all the way to Gully Park. And for those of that are familiar with Fayetteville, so I mean, there's really no excuse. Everybody lives within a really short bike ride of the trails, and they can jump on them and go where they want to go, even all the way up to Crystal Bridges if you're so inclined. So I'm just curious, Kim, I know I was telling B earlier, I remember reading an article, I think about you riding mountain bikes back in the day. What originally just spurred your curiosity to want to get on a bike and do that?
Oh, I moved to Bentonville in the mid '90s.
Yes.
And I moved from Atlanta, where I got my first mountain bike and got a sample of mountain biking, and I was hooked immediately. And I moved to Bentonville, and there was no mountain biking scene at all.
Right.
I had to wait almost another 10 years before that happened. And finally I got on my old nice heavy rigid bike and discovered that was not going to cut it for our trails even then. And now our trails are like world class, and it's you know, you don't need a super fancy bike to ride on them anymore. But when they were kind of fresh and hand cut kind of thing, you needed some nice equipment. I didn't have any nice equipment. I once again felt left out. I am about just 5'3", right under 5'1". And so it was really hard for me to find a mountain bike, and also to find a mountain bike that was like good for someone who's had a surgery here or two, and I wanted something cushy with all of the suspension. I looked into how much a bike would cost, and I was blown away. I was like, what?
It's like the cost of a small car.
Yeah.
So it's getting more reasonable now to get number one, to get a bike that fits multiple sizes. I can easily find a bike now to fit my size and whatever price range I want. And our trails are built now to where you can get a basic mountain bike and really enjoy the trails.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, the barrier to entry is definitely a lot lower now than it was before in terms of acquiring a bike. Even when I go online, you get a lot of serious bikers here, and they like to use a bike for a season and then they sell it and they upgrade and get something else. If you go on Facebook Marketplace, you can find a really good, gently used mountain bike or road bike, and the price is typically right. And then if you can take that to any one of the amazing bike shops here in Northwest Arkansas, two that come to mind are Fat Tire and, of course, the Bike Route, where I've gotten most of my bikes from. Big shout out to those guys. But then Bentonville's got several that I'm not really familiar with, but I know they come highly recommended. But any one of these bike shops can take even a gently used bike and turn it into practically brand new for you with a good tune-up. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it does make a difference. It really does. I noticed that there were a group, and I had never seen this before, but there were a group of ladies on this ride last time. I think it's like a Latina bike group. And they all had matching gear. I was like, man, this is serious. I felt like I wanted to go home and change my clothes because they looked like they knew what they were doing, and that it was a bunch of them. And I've since learned a little bit more about them. But do you know about those guys and about their focus on biking and possibly encouraging more folks in the Latinx community to get involved with biking?
Yeah, so the group's Arkansas Latinas Bike, and the founder is Olivia Barraza. And they started, I think, a little over a year ago, didn't they? I feel like it's almost 2 years now.
A year ago, May.
Yeah. And, Olivia, do you know how she first got into biking? Who got her into it?
Ah,
I don't even
I
remember.
don't know. I think she had got on the bike and went to join one of the groups, but didn't super feel included in that group.
Well, as we all know, like when you get on a bike, it's transformational. And I think Olivia got on a bike and realized like what an amazing resource and just toolkit to have just to navigate life. And I think she knew how valuable it would be to her specific community. And so in seeing a gap, she was like, this is so amazing that I have to share it. And so that was the beginning of Arkansas Latinas. And so like on a shoestring budget and like, fundraising and all kinds of stuff, like grassroots organizing, like she was able to put together a group, raise some money for cute pink jerseys and, like borrow bikes and do the thing and get her community out. And it's been really amazing to watch, to see how when you get a bike in the hands of a person who's passionate, what it can affect. So, yeah.
It takes on a life of its own, I think. So, it's one of those things, because I remember I rode a lot and then I took off. I mean, life happens, you have kids and all this other stuff. And I've just gotten back into it. And I mean, I'm whole bore. I just recently did a ride for cancer awareness, raising money for cancer. Just last month, I committed to riding 300 miles and raised like almost $1,000 for it. But it was just really good to get that kind of just road time in. And like I said, I think I told you guys I went out with a good friend of mine, Anthony Sumlin, who I've mentioned before on this podcast, but Anthony's been riding for quite some time, and he and I went out, and it's kind of nice to be able to schedule get-togethers around that. And so now I'm going out on gravel rides, and I mean, there's all kinds of organizations and groups. It's not just BikeNWA, a lot that are affiliated with BikeNWA, but then there's gravel grinders. I mean, there's a million different opportunities for you to find a couple of people and get out and ride the trails, ride the roads, and be safe, because I wouldn't recommend riding by yourself that much unless you're just riding on the greenway, because at least you're going to come across other people. But if you are road riding, you should ride at least with another person in case something happens with you or the bike or anything like that. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you think about cyclists and their relationship to cars and the road, I mean, obviously, like in America, road infrastructure was made for cars. Yeah. And so when you're in a space where it hasn't been made for you, it's always good to show up with a contingent to basically signal to the cars is that I'm here, we're humans on these bikes, like, and you can see the same thing, when we're getting a group of Black and brown folks together in force to show people that we're here, we exist, we're humans. This place wasn't made for us, but it should be. And this is kind of one of the ways we're here to support each other, but also to say we're standing together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, I appreciate that. So why don't we, I want to just give you guys just to kind of share some of the specifics about Sunday's event, because I'm going to roll this right out and get it out to people and try to push it out on different social media networks today and tomorrow so people can hear this. Obviously, for first of all, for people that are going to come out on the 11th from 3 to 5 to ride with you guys, can you just give us the particulars? Where are they meeting and all of that?
So the ride is October 11th, 3 to 5. We're going to be starting at the grass parking lot across from the Rosa Parks Mural in downtown Rogers. The address is 225 Walnut. And a generous supporter, Hannah Siccioni, who owns that lot, she has allowed us to use it and stage there. So we'll be meeting in that spot and we'll be following the BikeNWA Slow Streets Route. It's about 3.5 miles long. And Hannah has also donated a bar tab for us, for anybody who wants to join us post-ride for a frosty beverage at Ozark Beer. She has very generously offered to buy folks around.
Yes, I don't want anybody to miss that. Bar tab. Bar tab and beer. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Socially distance, of course. Yes, everybody absolutely. Wear masks. That's also important.
I did read where you obviously want people to have masks on before they get there, while they're doing the ride, and then when they come. Because I always ride with a gator, but I think that's important just to remind people about that. What is next for BIPOC after this? I mean, you guys will have had 2 successful events. Have you thought further beyond the 11th, or what are you hoping happens?
Yeah, well, gosh, we've been asked that a lot, and I think there's an appetite for people to want to do more. And so, really, these first couple rides are for people to get together and ride and to figure out who's in their community, so they can kind of start organic groups of their own. But we're also looking at doing an event, possibly like once a month, to keep this energy and momentum going. BNI, like mountain biking, we've also started getting into gravel riding. There's also enduro and cyclocross and road cycling. So there are so many disciplines of cycling you can get to, and the cruiser bikes, just cruising around slow streets. So there's so many different disciplines of cycling. And we want to do an event at least once a month. And it may not always be cruising on slow streets, but to some extent, some other event. And so we'll just keep posting on Facebook for now. But please, I encourage people to come out, get out and ride, meet your neighbors. If you enjoy riding, grab a friend that you might want to go out and ride with. 1 or 2 people is really all you need out on the trail. So we're excited. I mean, and also just getting kids on bikes too. We're looking at education and maybe doing something with the community centers in Fayetteville or Rogers, Bentonville, even, just to get that introduction to kids. I've been a NICA coach this is my 5th year. And again, it's an area where people of color have been left out. Mm-hmm. And so I'm actively working to try to figure out how we make that more inclusive, how more kids who want to ride bikes can ride bikes.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So we'll and this is my last question, will BIPOC eventually become some kind of nonprofit, or did you already set it up like that, or is it just the name only for right now, and you'll eventually figure out what it looks like down the road?
I don't know. Like we have that is a great question, Randy. I think we see a lot of advantages to becoming a nonprofit at some point down the road, especially because we can apply for grant dollars and such. I think for us, it's just a question. It's probably more of a question of when do we have the bandwidth to add that layer on versus are we going to do it? Yeah. So I think for us, we we know that there's a lot of benefits, but we also know it's going to be a whole other layer of commitment and involvement above and beyond what we're doing right now, not just for BIke.POC, but just, in our personal and professional spheres. So
I got it.
Yes. Just we're not sure when.
Well, I'll put myself out there now and just say whatever I can do to help. I would love to be a part of this, because I think this is an important movement. And, even as I have 3 boys, 10, 13, and 15, and I take them out on the trails all the time to ride their bikes. And I just think it's important that everybody should be experiencing that. And so whatever I can do to help you guys out, please let me know. I'll be one of your biggest supporters. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's not a problem. So, well, folks, there you have it. I'm so glad I had a chance to talk with Beatrice Apple and Kim Seay from BIPOC. And I think your guys are going to want to take part in this event on Sunday. Let's pack the house. Let's get 100+ people on their bikes, riding around downtown Rogers, just taking in the sunshine, because I think the weather's going to be good. And thanks to the folks over at Ozark Beer, we'll be able to possibly take in some beer afterwards for those of you that are legally able to do that. So I want to encourage you guys to come out, support what Beatrice and Kim are doing, and be a part of the bike movement here in Northwest Arkansas. I think it's not only is it good for you physically, but I think it's also good for you mentally, just to get out there and exercise. So thank you, ladies, so much for coming on the podcast and being on this special episode. We hope that the event is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here and doing what you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, there you have it, folks. A special episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm not gonna belabor you with a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna put some information in the show notes, put a cool picture up of the mural where you guys are going to be meeting across from, because I love that Rosa Parks Mural in Rogers. But I really want to encourage you to come out. So if you're listening to this before 3:00 on Sunday, jump on your bike, throw your skinny shorts on, and get out there and come bike with us for a couple of hours. It's for a good cause, and I think you'll benefit from it. So that's all I have. I will see you with a new episode next week. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.